Hi, I'm Andy Camsell from Clanfield Systems, and I'd just like to give you 3 quick tips about how to go about shutting down your HVAC plant if you have to close your building for a prolonged period of time. So the first thing is, if you have a BEMS company or a BMS company who you partner with, then you need to call them and get them to do it. If you do have someone who takes care of the BMS in your building or the controls in your building, then the chances are they'll be able to access your system remotely and they'll be able to shut it down in the correct manner so that all the plant that needs to be running is still running and only the plant which can be shut down for a very long time is. So the second thing is really a big do not. If you have a boiler room in your building, the worst thing you could do is go along and just turn all of the switches off on the control panel. That will shut down your plant, but it will also stop any frost protection which is built into the system, and it might also impact your HWS, your hot water services, for the hot water coming out of your tap. Although we're probably past the worst of the frost now, there is still a possibility that temperatures could drop at night, which can cause condensation in buildings. Most BEMS are engineered in a way which means that even when they're out of occupancy, if the temperature drops too low in the building, then it will bring on your heating plant to maintain a minimum temperature. That avoids condensation in the building. If you avoid condensation, then you can avoid potential damage to the fabric of your building. If it does get very cold, below freezing, like I say, quite unlikely this time of year, but then obviously you can get burst pipes, so you absolutely do not want to shut everything down. So how do you go about shutting it down? Well, if you have a BEMS system and you have a head end, that is a computer that you can access the system, you probably already know how to adjust your time schedules so that the system can be switched off. All you need to do is set your start time and your stop time to the same time, which is typically midnight, and then your plant will not run at all. But all of the protections that are in the background will still be operating. If you don't have a head-end PC, look at your control panel for your HVAC plant. You will probably find that there is a display panel on there. It's very usual if you're not having a computer to have a display panel. If you flick through the pages on there, and there's all different kinds of display panels depending on who's manufactured your BEMS, you will find your time schedules in there. Set them all to 0, so set them all to run at the same start and the stop time, and that will close your plant down in a controlled manner. So the third thing, if you have a hot water services system, that is the hot water which comes out of your taps, and it is supplied from a central tank, you do not want to switch that off completely. The reason for this is twofold. Firstly, if you've got people going into your building, particularly now, they might need to wash their hands and they'll need hot water to do this. But more importantly, if you have a hot water storage cylinder which is allowed to cool down to ambient temperature and then sit there for a very long time, Legionella bacteria can build up in the tank. That's one of the reasons we heat the hot water to about 60 degrees C. It's to kill off most of the bacteria. There are different types of hot water services supply systems. Some are point of use. This is not the ones I'm talking about. What I'm talking about are central cylinders. So if in your plant room you have a big tank where your hot water is stored for your taps, then these are the types of systems that we really need to be mindful of. The best thing you can do is to leave it operating at least once a day, and that way it will bring it up to temperature once a day, and this will manage any bacterial growth in the tank, so you won't need to worry about that when you finally do reopen your building. Obviously, in larger buildings, there's going to be a lot more complex systems, but you are more likely to have a BEMS professional on board who can advise you with that. But if you're in a smaller facility and you often take care of these things yourselves, then those are my tips for closing down your building if you have to. Don't switch everything off, make sure you just change the time schedules, and do leave your hot water services operational if you have a central storage tank. I hope you found this useful. I hope everyone is staying safe out there. We'll catch you again soon. Bye.